Amori is one of the best things. Sonichu begins with Sonic fighting Perfect Chaos from Sonic Adventure as a Pikachu walks by. Sonic gets slapped by Chaos and hits Pikachu. Instead of this killing him instantly, it instead creates a new evolution in the Pikachu line known as Sonichu, except for when that isn't the case anymore and Sonichus actually come from the Pokemon known as Soni. However, this collision doesn't only affect one Pikachu, it also sends a magic rainbow across the world that hits a female Raichu, creating Rosechu. Sonichu teams up with Sonic and defeats Chaos easily, then dubbing himself Sonichu. Keep in mind, Sonichu and Rosechu are just the names of the species and each one has a different name except for these two, as they are considered Sonichu and Rosechu Prime, obviously. Sonichu stumbles into the cottage of Kel, Rosechu's trainer, and Rosechu herself. Being in a new body, Sonichu is starving and wishes to break bread with these two random strangers. Through their night together, Sonic and Rosechu fall in love, with Sonichu stating, "As long as the birds tweet, you shall be my heart sweet." Instead of killing herself, Rosechu kisses Sonichu. Sonichu takes Rosechu to the mall to go shopping. When they get lunch, Sonichu has a meltdown because his burger has pickles on it and he hates pickles. Rosechu gets a salad because she's a woman and women only eat salads. Then the classic character Nateseer sends a fucking Zapdos to kill Rosechu, to which Sonichu excuses himself to save her. Sonichu uses Double Team to confuse Zapdos, even though that's not what that move actually does. There's then a final blow countdown for when Sonichu will blow Zapdos. Because he does this, Nateseer has to leave on Raikou. Once the battle is finished, Sonichu is congratulated by Christian Weston Chandler, the mayor of Quickville, and also Sonichu's trainer and father, even though they just now met. Sonichu brings up that despite being jobless, skillless, and having no social skills, Chris has no girlfriend, and Chris goes to loiter at the mall, with even Sonichu noting that he will remain maidenless. Keep in mind, I will be using Chris's male pronouns throughout this, because throughout this portion of the comic, Chris goes by male pronouns. Chris sits in the mall until a jerk-op arrives to tell him that he can't loiter all day at the mall, to which Chris responds by transforming into Chris-chan Sonichu and fighting the cruel officer. He finishes him off with his legendary and while it seems ineffectual, the cop then gets tragic news that his wife and children are leaving him, to which he exclaims, "My soul hurts!" But Chris points out that he got told to leave the mall, so he's the real victim here. Later that day, Nateseer brings a bunch of Sonichu's DNA to Dr. Eggman and Giovanni, who's also his dad. While working with the DNA, dumbass Giovanni spills cherry cola on the DNA but uses it anyways, which makes the clone black, because Chris wanted Shadow the Hedgehog to be a Sonichu. They dub him Black Sonichu, but he thinks that name is dumb and chooses to go by the much cooler name Blotchu. It is also explained that Sonichu is not Blotchu's dad, but brother for some reason. Blotchu then spends time training, and for you power scalers out there, we know that his special attack is 3 dots. That day, Sonichu picks up a very tiny Rosechu and heads to her house. Meanwhile, Sonic is also there and decides to go this way for no reason, while Blotchu is now in a bush. Blotchu starts a countdown, probably to blow Sonichu, but decides to kidnap Rosechu instead. At the same time, Sonichu and Sonic reunite, deciding to save Rosechu. Upon seeing Rosechu captured and forming a plan to kill Sonichu, Eggman does a funny dance. We know it's funny because Chris says it is. Sonichu gets captured and Eggman goes to press the energy sapping button. There's an attempt at writing how Sonic would normally taunt Eggman that goes nowhere until Sonic breaks Sonichu free. However, Eggman was ready as he unleashes Metal Sonichu, who loses almost instantly and never comes back. Thanks to their efforts, Rosechu is saved and slaps Blotchu. Meanwhile, on the moon, Rosechu meets Amy and they talk how Chris assumes women talk. But women talking sucks, so he chooses to skip most of it. He also skips it because it's time to focus on him again. You see, Chris is loitering once again. However, this time a woman actually approaches him to ask him out, but it turns out it was a prank and Chris gets down on his knees and screams, "No!" Which happened in real life and got him banned. Sonichu and Chris then head to a cave together because Sonichu found a cave and an old man guarding it, and the old man elaborated that Sonichu is the prophesized creature, and Chris is his creator, the father, and the prophesized master. And Chris is able to receive a special power by entering the cave with Sonichu and the cave master. It turns out Sonichu was right, and that Chris is actually a reincarnation of an ancient Cherokee leader who would one day fuse Sonic and Pikachu and then receive powers for himself, his crush, and also his rival. Also, an evil will strike the day the freakish yellow creature enters the cave. Chris puts his medallion on a pedestal as the old man chants, and I quote, "Enals elk emulp ork which teleports Chris to meet with his past life, who grants Chris the power to transform into a Sonichu who looks exactly like normal Sonic. Meanwhile, Wes Isley and Sarah Hammer, Chris's crush and rival respectively, are also cursed with hedgehog powers. We then learn that Sonichu doesn't bathe and only uses Axe body spray, which makes Rosechu want to orbit his belt reason. Fucking end me. Wes quickly reaches Chris and attempts to kill him with a fire blast, but fails. Beginning their fight, Chris tells Sonichu to run, to which Sonichu says, "You don't have to tell me twice, but during the Stone Age..." Chris explains to Wes that he was jealous of how Sarah was dating Wes instead of him, but that no matter what, all he cares about is Sarah being happy, which is why he drew himself beating up Sarah's boyfriend in a comic, with Sarah, of course, thinking Chris's rampant boundary-crossing bullshit is sweet and charming. Despite Chris's efforts, Isley is about to kill him when Sarah, who was there the whole time, saves the day. Sarah then dumps Wes and stabs him or some shit. The three then leave Sonichu behind because he doesn't matter anymore, and they have to kill the evil Mary Lee Walsh, who was a supervisor at Chris's college, who asked him to stop being a creep. Therefore, she must pay. Rosechu does nothing as the three Sonichus stop Mary's golem, and then she she leaves. Sonichu shows up to tell Chris how needy he is. Sarah friend zones Chris, and then Chris whines about some bullshit until Chris breaks into Mary Lee Walsh's evil lair and gets a shit wrecked, until Sonichu saves him and they team up to punish her for punishing Chris for breaking in. But it turns out that the rainbow created when Sonichu evolved sent multiple eggs throughout time to different locations. 18 years later and in the present day, they have become Wild Sonichu, Bubbles Rosechu, Angelica Rosechu, who Chris would watch sleep, Punchy Sonichu, and goddamn fucking Magi-chan Sonichu, who is not only basically an all-knowing god, but also Chris's husband way down the line. During a mission where Blatchu was trying to steal this thing, Sunstone, the Sonichus all meet up. Realizing that they are all the same, they introduce each other. But Magi-chan knows that these dumbass idiots are ignoring Blatchu running away, so Magi-chan teleports across the world not to stop him, but to yell at the other Sonichus for not stopping him. Unfortunately, Blatchu ran into Sonichu Prime, who bought just enough time for the other Sonichus to get there and slap his shit. The 5 siblings are then dubbed the Chaotic Combo. And also, holy shit, this comic has way too many words, just so many. Meanwhile, Chris is at McDonald's complaining that every man besides him has stolen all of the pretty girls, leaving him with none to choose from. Upon hearing the sexism, the manager of the establishment asks Chris to leave, while being flanked by jerk-hops. Suddenly, Dark Bind Sonichu shows up and defends Chris's honor, and Chris gets wings. Then he just rips off the Holy Grail while barely getting the joke. Chris then word vomits all over the manager until he dies, but it's all for naught as the W manager arrives to make him stop talking. In order to defeat him, Chris's past life informs him that he can summon his sister, who is just him from another dimension, but a girl, which makes shit real weird after Chris's transition. Chris summons Crystal West and Chandler, and the two murder the manager for telling Chris to chill the fuck out. Crystal shows that she truly is Chris by also spewing diarrhea from her mouth. The two then throw the manager's head at Mary Lee Walsh and she fucking dies, I think. Then the clock says that she's dumb for thinking Chris is loitering and won't get him a girlfriend. By the way, it never did. Then there's literally like 10 more pages of this shit where Chris is asked to leave a place where he's loitering and then Chris kills them all or something. There's one at a zoo and there's one at a Target. He gets annihilated, then someone saves him. He gets put in a ball gag at one point. Whatever, I'm skipping it. Chris fucking gulps down the fattest, meatiest straw I ever done seen. We then cut to Sarah's wedding as Wes Isley tries to ruin it. However, Chris, now thinking that he's going to get together with a different girl, begins trying to fight Wes with Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Wes kidnaps Sarah, with Chris being out of Yu-Gi-Oh points, until Wes is stopped by Sailor Megtoon and Megami Liskunk, who are both the same girl in real life that Chris was so awful to that she literally told him like 6 times she never wanted to interact with him again, to which Chris responded by constantly mentioning and trying to get in touch with her. Classy. Later on, Mary Lee Walsh and her accomplice on the moon, Count Graduan, put into law that love is now illegal and that Virginia is now for virgins only. Count Graduan is actually an adaptation of Chris's hilariously pathetic high school graduation. Multiple jerk-hops begin attacking everyone who even thinks about falling in love, even though Chris is the mayor and I thought he made the laws. Through an unreadable wall of text, Chris says that definitely for sure Megan will date him. Then this absolute nightmare is interrupted and the day is saved by the main man, DJ Jamsta Sonichu. He is the coolest guy ever. He says dude and rad and rockin' and yowza, and he definitely didn't do those horrid things he was accused of doing to Punchy, I promise. The humble DJ also asked for the help of Chris and Sonic because despite obviously being powerful enough to stop the threat, Jamsta is busy playing a groove track by Monica Real. Quickville's police are easily outnumbered as they are barely trained and have no concept of de-escalation, and it seems as though Walsh has finally taken over Quickville for good, until Chris fucking surfboards on over and calls the other Sonichus to help and begins fighting Cad, Chef, who the fuck. The battle goes smoothly until Walsh beats them back, but at the last second, the two Megans appear and save the day. However, despite the tides turning, Walsh uses her trump card and tries to seal away Chris in a timeless void until Crystal sacrifices herself in his stead. Megan cries because she almost lost her male friend who she really likes. Meanwhile, Nate Cirque begins a haunting transformation, as Chris's medallion was dipped into the dark energy, which was a real dick move to not mention that in the prophecy, I have to say. This next part has me conflicted, as it follows Chris coping with the loss of his dog by turning her into a weird furry thing and having her live on in Quickville. And you know, as a person who's lost 2 pets in the last 2 months, I understand how much we want those animals to live on in some way. However, this is Quickville, so I kind of feel like he's locking her soul in an eternal purgatory where none can escape these deranged fantasies, but I also don't want to be a complete chode, and Patty rarely comes back, so I'm just gonna leave this one as is. The Sonichu and Chris hold a meeting of what to do to save Crystal, before there's like 3 pages of absolutely nothing as they talk about how epic Chris is, and also Bionic the Hedgehog, because this is what Chris thinks is foreshadowing. They realize that to save Crystal, they need to collect the 7 Sonichu balls, and luckily Darkbind has 2, but he originally wanted them to restore his girlfriend to life. But fuck this guy, take his balls. Speaking of balls, Nate Cirque has unlocked his Sonichu form, R-nack Natsu Nate Cirque, and is currently off stealing a Sonichu ball. It turns out, upon awakening himself, he realized not only is he Giovanni's son, but he's also Chris's evil opposite. He's evil, cruel, and of course, gay. Chris is violently offended by the raw, sexually free energy of R-nack, and cries like a little baby. Meanwhile, Blatchu confides in Magi-chan and Sonichu Prime about how R-nack is very mean to him, and also that he wants to pipe bubbles, because what the fuck is the point of a character in this universe if they're not in a relationship? Back with Chris and his doppelganger, I think it's implied that being the opposite of Chris, R-nack also doesn't have autism. Neat. As always, Chris gets completely stomped in the fight until All of a sudden, Chris is yet again bailed out by another character, this time Bionic the Hedgehog, Chris's first OC, and the basketball-playing, long-lost twin brother of Sonic the Hedgehog. Bionic gives Chris one of the Sonichu balls as they talk about being lonely and pathetic together, except for 2 seconds later when Bionic is now dating Magagi. Chris begins to have a meltdown because of this before Megan calms him down, because as we know, women are built to do nothing but keep their men under control like some kind of handler. As the Sonichu ball glows, Maju-chan realizes that the next ball is indeed in this location, but only in the past. Chris-chan recovers his mood thanks to his Goku get him attitude, and Maju-chan explains that they need to head back in time to when Chris got beamed by a basketball and came up with Bionic the Hedgehog, because that was no basketball, it was a Sonichu ball, which then leads Chris into remembering the time he was fat, stupid, and went to watch television at Ghost Command, literally doing a Family Guy cutaway with no joke, and the actual thing makes no sense whatsoever. Like, I'm fat and stupid too, but this situation is totally unrelatable. Maju-chan takes himself, Sonichu, and Chris back in time as Chris ponders the nature of time travel and how time truly is cyclical, because he saw it in Futurama once. They arrive back in the past, with a young Chris pointing out that this is another day managing the basketball team in his freshman year. In reality, Chris was only manager in name, and he was actually just the water boy. Anyways, another text barrage comes by, and we learn that Chris doesn't know how teenagers talk, and I think he just assumes that they talk in rhyme. Anyways, his tall basketball player friend points out that he sucks with women, compared to the Riz King that is 9th grade Chris, who decides to go read R.L. Stine. Chris is so manly and cool, in fact, that while he reads children's books, he imagines Sonic characters in the characters' places. Bionic comes out of a nearby locker, and before Chris can get bashed in the skull with the Sonichu ball, it's intercepted. Returning to the 3 current timeline characters, they head back to the present. However, during this time travel, Chris is lost and falls into a time void where none can escape. Maju-chan points out how pathetic every character's obsession with the opposite gender is, before Sonichu asks, "Where in the bottle of Pepsi is Chris?" Maju-chan realizes, "We've lost him." Chris is now trapped in an inescapable void while he'll be barraged with events past, present, and future in a torturous existence that none can assist him in escaping. To which Sonichu tells Rosie to stop worrying so they can have sex. We then get a break with the best character of all time, DJ Jamsta, as he interviews the OCs of one of Chris's fake girlfriends. This is then followed by Lolisa Rosechu interviewing Sonichu's #1 fan, who is an absolutely pathetic creep who takes after Chris in every way, including the fact that despite his excellent women advice, he doesn't have a girlfriend and never will. Sonichu and Rosechu then Rosechu goes online to fuel her vapid need for constant praise, as all women do, but to her utter shock and dismay, she stumbles across the notorious 4cent garbage website, which portrays her, Sonichu, and the rest of the gang as performing lewd sex acts, probably drawn by Chris. Worst of all, though, is images of Rosechu with a fat swinging hog. This disturbs her, as she's been blessed with, and once again I quote, "a healthy pair of ovaries, a vagina, and a uterus." Sonichu is so violently shocked that he dies. The gang then joins up with Wild Sonichu in order to take down 4cent garbage by politely asking them to stop. Wild decides that he should go in quietly in order to take their Sonichu ball, and goes into detail about the reasons for his skill and stealth due to his father, a lone scyther teaching him. Wild tearfully explains that his father was brutally murdered and carried off, leaving Wild with the endless trauma of that feeling that he didn't do enough. Sonichu says that's cool, dude, and they split up. Sonichu and Rosechu easily are allowed into the elevator, as Wild steals the Sonichu ball with very little issue. Sonichu and Rosechu confront the evil Jason Kendrick Howell, who runs 4cent garbage. Sonichu explains that by trolling people and slandering their names, Jason is not only committing crimes against himself, but America, a country founded on love and peace, where no war or violence has ever happened. And as someone born under that flag, Jason, like Sonichu, should know to respect others. Jason responds, "I am a troll with no such beliefs. I know that we are born, then we die. I intend to make the most of my pitiful life by tormenting every person within my grasp until they all die from the shame and distress of their existence. The page will stay up. This meeting is over." "What'd you say?" Sonichu leaps forward and immediately gets his shit slapped, giving up. However, Jason not only wants the last laugh, but the other last laugh as well. "That's right. Go and play with your pickle." Rosechu snaps. She destroys the pickle, then Jason survives just barely, but thinks it's pretty epic that he got a vagina forcibly shoved into his face. Rosechu then decides that the best way to counter all of this is to post actual nudes of herself on the internet along with all of her friends. We get more of the most incomprehensible women writing you'll ever see until they start chanting for votes for women, because I assume in Quickville, Chris disallowed women's right to vote many years ago. While they prepare, they're joined by 14-year-old Zappino Rosechu, who also wants to take part. However, she's told no because, and I once again quote, "what with the dumb laws?" We then join the characters as they celebrate the birthdays of the chaotic combo, with Blachu, now known as Blake Sonichu having a romantic moment with Bubbles Rosechew. We cut to DJ Jams to Sonichu announcing spring break in all of Quickville. The notorious Narc and Killjoy, Mayor Chris bans everyone in the city from getting drunk or somki. The game partakes in a beach episode and holy shit, Sonichu's feet. Blake and Bubbles plan to meet under a bridge for sex or some shit, but unbeknownst to them, a new Sonichu, Savannah Rosechew, is playing both of them. You see, another egg was sent deep into space where it was adopted by the evil Count Graduan, who raised Sylvana on the moon. She is raised as a gender-fluid shapeshifter meant to take down Chris and his Sonichus. Sylvana disguised herself as Bubbles before having sex with Blake and knocking him out with her vagina. By the way, this comic is meant for children ages 14 and under. After dumping his body, she transforms into Blake when Magic-chan senses, warning Bubbles. Bubbles tells him to fuck off for no discernible reason. And then what do you know, she gets fucking tricked but is able to fend off Sylvana. We then go to Chris, who recounts that time in the void where he had 3 relationships. One was fake and died. Another was fake, but this one was real. It was fake. Then, in Date Ed, the characters go to dating school, but I'm skipping it because it's not plot important. Fuck you. Although it does introduce Reginald the Sneasel and develop Simone LaRosechew, who's dumber than a sack of bricks. Across the city, Sonichu is talking about how much he despises gay people. Before the Private Villa of Corrupted Citizens, or PVCC, the college Chris was banned from for loitering, is attacking. The group is easily fighting off jerk cops until literal Decepticons show up. Luckily, Chris's real-life car is also a Transformer and has a whole gang of cars, being Sonichu, Arm Drakes, Excelina, Prowler, and Bumbalumba, who's the best character next to GJ Jams to Sonichu. Chris then references that his fake girlfriend fucking died in a fire, but her Sonichus were saved. One is named Blaze Bob, and I don't care about the other. Liquid Chris shows up for the first time and dies instantly. We get barrages of even more characters joining up on both sides, from Nate Search to Bionic to Sylvana, with the heroes coming out on top quite handily. It seems without Chris to constantly get in the way, the quick defense force can fight unabated. Oh fuck, wait, he's back. Turns out that Chris ended up in the future for a bit where he helped create a cure to homosexuality using his blood. Taking this back to the present, he cured homosexuality by infecting the water supply with his hetero-tainted blood. Chris then goes around murdering every single person who has ever been mean to him, culminating in him getting his old band, Christian and the Sonichu Boys, together as they play so loud that the 4-cent garbage building falls with hundreds of people inside of it. 2 of them, Clyde Cash and Jack Thaddeus, decide to share one final loving moment in each other's arms as they cast themselves down, not willing to die at Chris's hand. The toll of this was heavy, with over 100 lives lost, and Chris mourning the loss of many lives, despite it literally being all his fault. Following this, Chris and Sonichu use the Sonichu balls to transform into Ultra Sonichu and Colossal Chris-chan, who is the exact same size as normal Chris-chan, to mend the wrongs of even more trolls. However, while this goes well, Simone LaRosechew heads for the restroom. Everyone is in furious mourning over what happened, including Simone's daughter, Sandy Rosechew. After some time passes, the murderers are brought forward in court, the creators behind the much more popular comic Asperchew. The penalty is death, as their bones are broken, bodies mutilated, and spirits destroyed, all for the crime of slightly making fun of Chris. Oh, or killing Simone or something. The Sonichus gather for Christmas, and the story comes to a close. You know, until it turns out Chris is a goddess and the universe begins eating itself, and Chris gives the Sonichu medallion to Hitler, who then creates a new Reich of Son.